Welcome, and thank you for tuning in. If you enjoy this video, we invite those of you who haven't yet done so, to like, comment, share, subscribe, and click the notification icon, to be notified when the next one is uploaded. We'd also like to urge those of you who haven't yet done so, to sign our online petition for an inquiry into the BBC and Channel 4's coverage of Lewis Hamilton and Abu Dhabi. A link has been provided in the description. If you are on X, then please repost our tweet. Thank you. Not only was Lewis Hamilton the primary mover behind the symbolic taking of the knee at the beginning of Formula One races in 2020, he was also highly critical of President Trump's handling of the death of Floyd George and the ensuing protests during his first term. And as we all know, the US president is living up to his campaign promise of retribution.
Quick word on taking the knee at the start. It seemed a bit rushed. Are you concerned that this might be losing a bit of momentum? What can you do? Look, I know that you've been so vocal and you've been going around all the drivers and talking to them and encouraging them and keeping the discussion going. But talking to Roman Grosjean, the chairman of the GPDA, he said a decision hadn't even been made about what everyone was doing.
Well, he doesn't think it's important to do it, so that's, he's one of them that thinks that it was done once and that's all we need to do. But so I tried to speak to him about what the problem is and that it's not going away and we have to continue to fight for it. But I think this time he didn't mention anything in the driver's briefing, and neither did Sebastian. And Sebastian and I messaged each other, and he stressed, as did I, the importance that we continue to do it. I think moving forwards we need to speak with Formula One. They've got to do a better job. It was such a rush. I was getting out the car, running over, quickly taking the knee, and then they need to do more. And I don't know why they've only done it for the first race. They've did the start. They've not done it since then. They've come out saying that they're going to be fighting for diversity and racism, but they're not giving us the platform to continue that because it's all rushed. So I think they can give us more time. So if we speak to them, I'll probably send an email over the next couple of days and try and coordinate with them to create a better, because they do want to do it. It's just, I guess, there was not good enough communication. So
I suppose.
With reports of visitors and green card holders being denied entry or re-entry into the US percolating the news media, it was inevitable that sooner rather than later, there would be a case of some high-profile person being denied entry or re-entry because of the type of socio-political views that the likes of Lewis Hamilton hold. There have also been reports of people that have been denied entry or re-entry being detained for extended periods of time with their whereabouts unknown before being deported. Here's a clip from a German public service broadcaster on the subject.
A number of countries have updated their travel advice to the United States in the wake of a crackdown on immigration by the Trump administration. Travelers have reported being detained at the U.S. border even though they had valid travel visas. Germany updated its travel advisory for the U.S. this week after a number of its citizens were detained at customs and then deported.
What was intended as a short vacation turned into a nightmare. German tourist Lukas Silaf was detained upon arrival in the US and hauled into a detention facility.
They put me in chains everywhere, around my stomach, on my hands, my feet. Then they put me in a van and drove me to the detention center in Satienko.
Lucas was returning to the US from a vacation in Mexico. He says he had a valid US tourist visa, but ended up spending 16 days in detention before being allowed to return to Germany.
A French public service broadcaster has also reported on a French scientist being denied entry because of text messages on his phone.
While in France, a scientist was denied entry to the United States because immigration officers found text messages on his phone criticising President Donald Trump. The incidents suggest that no one is immune from Trump's strict border policies and immigration crackdown.
Countries are now advising their citizens who are visiting America to leave their smartphones at home and take a burner phone instead, while immigration lawyers are advising people to scrub their phones and social media of content critical of the administration. This is supposedly because the US have stepped up the checks they conduct at entry ports to include scanning people's private messages to discern their view on Trump and his administration. It is well documented that in his first term President Trump was very critical of the Black Lives Matter protests, which was symbolized by the taking of the knee.
All of it a response to Trump's comments Friday about players who protest this way, who, in Trump's view, disrespect the U.S. flag.
Get that son of a bitch off the field right now. Out. He's fired.
Trump and his supporters frame it as unpatriotic, but the protests are aimed at highlighting racial inequality in the U.S. That's why former NFL quarterback Colin Kaepernick began it last year, a move, say some, that cost him his career, as no team hired Kaepernick this season.
Well, who was the one who led a reluctant Formula One to adopt taking the knee? Yeah, that would be Sir Lewis. Back in 2020, Hamilton famously hit out at President Donald Trump over the death of Floyd George during his first term, with a post on social media which read, "This is the visual that will define Trump. 100,000 dead, 40 million unemployed, cities under attack by violent police. When his country needed a leader, Donald Trump turned off the lights and hid in his bunker." Earlier this year, he again responded directly to President Trump signing a series of executive orders to cut back on diversity, equity, and inclusion in business. When asked to comment on the development, which directly threatened the Diversity and Inclusion Charter, which the longtime proponent on human rights and equality had pushed for every F1 team to sign up to in November last year, he replied, "I'm not going to change what he does, or the government does. All I can do is try to make sure that in my space, in my environment, I'm trying to elevate people. There's going to be forces along the way that don't want that, for whatever reason I can't fathom. That doesn't stop me. It is a fight that we'll just keep fighting." So, it is clear that in the current climate, Hamilton is a prime person of interest for US border officials to target. Memorably, Novak Djokovic was a high-profile casualty of the Biden administration's policy on vaccination. And, now as Sir Lewis prepares to enter the US for the forthcoming Miami GP, what are the chances that he will become a high-profile casualty of the Trump administration's immigration policy? What are the chances that we will see headlines like the one we have produced above? For better or for worse, he has become a focal point for those who wish to pit his progressive agenda against the Trump administration. And even though he owns a home in the US, we are acutely aware that this hasn't stopped many from facing some challenges at the US border, whether temporary or permanent. So, guess we will wait to see if he is allowed into the country to take part in the Miami GP. Forza Ferrari.